G'day Internet, it's so good to have you. Welcome to week 2 of The Good Fight. It's taken by our very own Mark Pomeroy. If you guys are at home and you've been enjoying our content for a few weeks now, how about liking our channels, subscribing to our channels so you get all the notifications during the week, or sharing them with a family or a friend that you think may be interested. Today's awesome worship partner is Jonathan Traylor. If you're at home, maybe join along. The words are on the screen.
Tomorrow will bring, but I know you are with me. And I do not know what the future will hold, but you never forsake me. In all my days, you never left my side. Cloud by day, fire by night, I'll follow you all of my life. I'll follow you all of my life. Yeah. I could not win this battle on my own. I'm so glad you are for me. I've been in the fire, but you brought me out. No, you never forsake me. In all my days, you never left my side. Cloud by day, fire by night, I'll follow you all of my life. I'll follow you all of my life. Step I take, you've already been there. And every move I make, you've seen it before. So I won't turn back now, for you are with me. You have led me here, so I will trust in the Lord. Step I take, you've already been there. And every move I make, you've seen it before. So I won't turn back now, for you are with me. You have led me here, so I will trust in the Lord. Cloud by day, fire by night, I'll follow you all of my life. I'll follow you all of my life. I'll follow you all of my life. Table filled with the best food. Can you hear the Father calling? There's a seat just for you. And at this table all is forgiven. Trading your chains of bondage for crowns of freedom. All are welcome at the table. There is a place just for you. No condemnation at the table. There is a place just for you, just for you. This is the table of new beginnings. These cups are full of love, and it's never ending. And at this table, there are no orphans, just a loving Father and His sons and daughters. All are welcome at the table. There is a place just for you. No condemnation at the table. There is a place just for you. All are welcome at the table. There is a place just for you. No condemnation at the table. There is a place just for you, just for you. Yeah. There's a seat for you. Shame at the door. You won't need it anymore. And hold your head up high. This is the start of your new life. Leave your chains at the door. They can't hold you anymore. And hold your head up high. This is the start of your new life. All are welcome at the table. There is a place just for you. No condemnation at the table. There is a place just for you, just for you.
So here it is, guys. Week 2 of The Good Fight is taken by our very own Mark Pomeroy. So buckle up. It's an amazing message.
Well, hey there, Elevate friends and family. Great to have you with us today. Now, let me start with a kind of a straight shooting question here. Have you ever done something or said something that was so kind of bad that you wondered if you'd ever come back from it? You know, you wondered if you'd blown it permanently, or even wondered if it disqualified you from God ultimately using you and having a purpose for your life. Or maybe you didn't do something that disqualified you, but have you ever felt God calling you to do something that you felt that was sort of not disqualified, but unqualified? Like, there's no way I could do this, you know, and it's too big, it's too daunting. The idea of that thing, that purpose that God's calling me to it's just too overwhelming. And okay, I know you probably showed up today to be encouraged, And I'm going to get to that, I promise. But let me just drill into this a little bit first, and I'll come back to this big idea. This is week 2 of a series we launched last week called The Good Fight. And we take this very phrase, the good fight, from something that Paul, who was one of the leaders in the early church, wrote in a letter to a younger leader who he'd mentored, a guy named Timothy. And Paul wrote this to Timothy, and this is the second letter Paul wrote to Timothy. It was ultimately the last letter that Paul wrote to anybody, because Paul actually knew, and he wrote this right in the piece I'm about to drop us into, that he was actually soon to face his death. And this is one of the things late in that second letter to Timothy that Paul wrote. I fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. I mean, there's just so much in that one sentence, but interestingly that Paul uses the word fight. I've fought the good fight. And it identifies the reality that following Jesus and ultimately living out his purposes in our life, it's a fight. But he says it's a good fight. It's a worthwhile fight. In fact, when it comes to seeing God's kingdom expanded, it's a vital fight. We need to be in fighting. But look, the reality is that not everyone who signs up to follow Jesus takes on the fight because they think that they're signing up for a pleasure cruise, not a battleship. And then some people who start fighting don't see it through. You know, things get hard. They get knocked down. They get disappointed. And so they stop fighting. Well, Paul declares, I've fought the good fight. I've finished the race, and I've remained faithful. So right there, and the reason we're teaching this series is that's an aspirational goal. Like, what would it look like for you and for me to be near the end of our time on this earth and to be able to confidently declare exactly the same way Paul wrote, I've fought the good fight, I've finished the race, and I've remained faithful. You see, Paul then goes on to write in the next sentence that he actually knows that his prize is awaiting him, because he's fought the good fight, that he's expecting to hear the words from Jesus, well done, good and faithful servant. What an incredible aspirational goal. But it won't happen by accident. And it won't happen if you and I aren't prepared to fight the good fight throughout our entire lives. So last week we talked about fighting for your heart. And if you missed that, I'd encourage you to go back and watch that on this channel, or pop open your favorite podcast app and find us there. Just search Elevate Church Perth and you'll see that episode, or you'll be able to listen to that episode, Fight for Your Heart. Today, I want to talk about the importance of fighting for your purpose. Now, chances are you've heard of the coffee chain Starbucks. Yeah. Perhaps many of you live or have visited a country where they have Starbucks. Here in Perth, Starbucks tried and failed, but there you go. Anyway, I remember one of my early was it my first visit? Might have been my first visit to a Starbucks in the US. And the system, if you're not aware, is you go to place your order and they take the cup that your order is going to be ultimately made in, and they write what's your name? You write your name on the cup in a Sharpie pen, hand that to the barista, or they might be the barista. They make your coffee, and then they call your name out. And you just wait off to the side, waiting to hear your name called out. And so I'm there. I've ordered an Americano, and I'm just standing back a little ways from the counter, waiting patiently, waiting. And they start calling out Mike. Americano for Mike. Americano for Mike. Americano for Mike. And I'm thinking to myself, Mike, listen, buddy, wherever you are, your Americano's waiting. And I'm kind of thinking that I'm not going to get my Americano until Mike flipping shows up and gets his Americano, and then the barista can get busy making my Americano. Until I realized that they thought when I said my name is Mark, with my Australian accent that they said Mike, and therefore they're calling out for Mike. Well, that's pretty embarrassing, and I went forward. And now from that day, anytime I go to Starbucks, I order an Americano for Morik. That's me. But it's not the first Starbucks name fail. Happens all the time. Ask the internet, you'll find a bunch of Starbucks name fails. Here's one. This is a coffee for all over, which is meant to be for Oliver. Next one's a little bit too close to home for me. That's Mark with a C. Oh, C. Kark, yeah. And then now that things are digitized, there's this one. You know, barista says, what's your name? And the guy obviously went, Kevin. Kevin. Anyway, look, the reality is that names matter. So, if you've got your smartphone, how about you scan this flow code? It's going to take you to John chapter 20. Now, John's one of Jesus' hand-picked disciples. John's one of the 4 biographers that we still have access to, his written account of Jesus' life and ministry. And where I'm going to drop us into, John chapter 20, let me give you the context. Jesus had been crucified on a cross. He'd been put in a borrowed tomb. And on the Sunday morning, as was customary after he'd been dead for 3 days, there was a couple of women that went to the tomb, and they were going to put Jesus' body through the Jewish customary burial practice. Well, one of them was a lady named Mary Magdalene, and we'll talk about her a lot today. But when these women arrived at the tomb, not only did they find that the tombstone that had been sealed and guarding Jesus' tomb had been rolled away, but then they looked inside and they actually discovered that Jesus' body wasn't there. And they assumed that it had been stolen. And so they freaked out and they ran back to where the Jesus followers were hiding out and mentioned it to a couple of Jesus' close handpicked followers, Peter and John, who Peter and John then made their way running to the tomb. And sure enough, when they got there, it was exactly how the women described it. The stone had been rolled away, the tomb was empty. And then John describes, because he was one of the people that had ran to the tomb, that the light bulb then went on, like it clicked for them. This is the thing that scriptures had been talking about, that the Messiah would rise from the dead. And so John writes right then, right there, we believed and then we left. Well, Mary Magdalene invariably had made her way back to the tomb, and we find her standing outside the tomb crying, just like inconsolable, because Jesus, her Messiah, her Savior, had been taken away. His body had been stolen. And at some point she turned to leave and she saw someone standing there. Well, it was Jesus, but she didn't recognize him. Mary, Jesus said. And she turned to him and cried out, Rabboni, which means teacher. Like, she recognized him, not just because of what he looked like, but because he called her by name. You know, Jesus is so interested in you that he calls you by name. That Jesus isn't just powerful, he's personal. And he didn't just kind of broadcast his resurrection, at this stage anyway, to a whole group of people. He appeared to one, and he called her by name. And Mary wasn't just some rando, by the way, just like one of Jesus' hundreds, thousands, whoever, of followers. No, they actually had history. Mary had traveled with Jesus and his disciples. Mary was one of the people that financially supported Jesus and his ministry. Mary was one of the few people that actually faithfully stood at the foot of the cross while Jesus was hanging there, gradually fading to his death. But her first encounter, or her early encounters, indicate that she was someone whose life had been radically transformed by Jesus. See, this time in these events, Mark's account of Mary coming across Jesus at the empty tomb reads like this: after Jesus rose from the dead early on Sunday morning, the first person who saw him was Mary Magdalene, the woman from whom he had cast out 7 demons. See, when Mary first came to Jesus, she didn't come to him as someone who had it all together. She came to him as a mess. And Jesus could have chosen anyone to first appear to. I mean, Peter and John were there on the scene, so if Jesus had appeared a few minutes prior, then it would have been Peter and John. But Jesus wasn't late, and Jesus didn't make a mistake. He chose once messy Mary, who'd been transformed. Her mess in her past didn't disqualify her from being the first person Jesus appeared to. Now, any Japanese people joining us today? If you are, then I apologize if I butcher any of the following story, but have any of you heard of kintsugi? Kintsugi is a centuries-old Japanese art of repairing broken pottery. Here's an example: a black bowl, an otherwise nondescript black pottery bowl that's been repaired using the ancient Japanese art of kintsugi. Now, you'll notice here by this picture is that rather than rejoin the broken ceramic pieces together with a camouflage adhesive, the kintsugi technique actually employs a tree sap lacquer, and then they dust that with fine metals like gold, silver, or platinum, and it gives the repaired piece a very distinct, one-of-a-kind appearance. And you'll notice by this picture that the art of kintsugi emphasizes the fractures and the breaks rather than trying to hide or disguise them, and it ultimately makes them more beautiful than the original, giving them an even better second life. What's more, the adhesive that they use takes approximately 30 days to cure. And maybe you're somebody whose life or pieces of your life have been blown apart, and you've wondered if God can use you. You wondered if you've become disqualified or unqualified. And yet, no, that's not the case. But it might take a while. The repair process might take a while. But here's another fascinating thing about it. The repaired piece is not only more beautiful than the original, it's also stronger than the original. So something that Isaiah recognizes and declares about God is that we are the clay and you, God, are the potter, and we're all formed by your hand. And I wonder if we've maybe overlooked an aspect of this truth, this relationship that God's the potter and we're the clay. If we've only kind of allocated this aspect of God's resume as it pertains to first forming us. And yet, I wonder if God's not the ultimate kintsugi master, that he's not only brilliant as a potter to first forming us, but he's also the ultimate at repairing us and restoring us more beautiful and stronger than ever before. And this was Mary Magdalene's story. She'd been put back together more beautiful and stronger than ever before. And then Jesus didn't just choose her to have the unspeakable privilege of being the person that he first appeared to. He also then gave her new purpose. Don't cling to me, Jesus said, for I haven't yet ascended to the Father, but go find my brothers and tell them. And I'll come back to what that message is going to be. But here's the incredible thing. Jesus knows everything about you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And one of the most powerful things you can ever learn about Jesus is he doesn't just love you despite knowing everything about you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. He also likes you. And therefore, he knows exactly what he's doing when he plants purpose in your heart. It's not frivolous. It's not wasted. It's not a mistake. And even though we will invariably make mistakes, him, Jesus, giving us purpose was and is not a mistake. But there's a final piece in this whole puzzle. When Jesus gives us purpose, it kind of ultimately counts for nothing if we don't then fight, not just to learn our purpose, but to carry out his purpose in our lives. This is the O word, people. Obedience. Now, if you are or you've been parents of upper primary or maybe sort of junior high school age, and you've ever asked Junior to do something like, hey, Junior, can you take out the garbage? Or can you clear away some dishes? Or can you maybe tidy up your bedroom? And Junior's kind of grunted. And you now know how to interpret the grunt, and you know that this particular grunt is okay. Teenage for okay. So you leave, you come back a couple of hours later, and you notice that the specific task that you've asked Junior to perform has yet to be done. And actually, Junior has not moved an inch from where they were when you first asked them to do said task. And you confront Junior with your displeasure. And Junior says, yeah, I'll get it done eventually. And then it clicks. There is an expectation gap between you and Junior when it comes to the timeline of this execution of specific tasks. So you think, okay, I feel like I need to clarify. So you said to Junior, when I asked you to do that thing, I didn't mean when you finished doom scrolling YouTube. I didn't mean when you've finally leveled up in that game. And look, I'm so sorry if I didn't make this clear the first time, but I meant now, as in now. Now, parents, feel free to play the following soundbite to your kids. I'm with you. I got you. Okay, here it goes. Ready? Junior, I'm not interested in delayed obedience. I want immediate obedience. And so does God. Don't cling to me, Jesus said to Mary Magdalene, for I haven't yet ascended to the Father, but go. Find my brothers and tell them I'm ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. Well, Mary Magdalene found the disciples and told them, I've seen the Lord. And then she gave them his message. Now, at first glance, this instruction that Jesus gave to Mary, don't cling to me, may sound a little counterintuitive. Are we meant to cling to Jesus? Well, yeah, relationally, yes, but in this case, Jesus was giving her a purpose, and it had an urgency attached to it. Mary, I want you to go, and I want you to go not eventually. I want you to go now. You've got work to do. No burning daylight. You've got a purpose to fulfill, and it's urgent. Now. So, a couple of questions. This is some homework, people. I hope we've encouraged you that if you've ever felt like you've blown it or disqualified yourself, or you've ever felt unqualified or unable to do what God's called you to do, that you can draw inspiration from Mary Magdalene, that you can be restored and transformed and put back together even more beautiful and stronger than you were before. And that not only are you not disqualified from Jesus planting purpose in your heart, but you are positioned, you are ready. So here's my homework question. Have you ever given God cause to have to clarify the timeline on something he's called you to do? He's called you and you've said, eventually. I mean, I'll do it. Eventually. Or, yeah, God, I'll get to it. Once I've done what I need to do, then I'll get to doing what you need me to do. And maybe today, Jesus is clarifying for you, I meant now. Hey, I'd love to invite you to join us again next week. Bring somebody, because we're going to talk about the importance of fighting for your mind. You don't want to miss that. We'll see you then.
At Elevate Church, we have a strong emphasis on giving and reaching into people just like you all over the planet. If you'd like to help us reach into more people, the ways to give can be found just below. Until then, guys, go on and have a blessed week.